Hey folks, back with another video. Let's dive into what stories got my attention today. At least 10 civilians and 5 security personnel were killed in a cross-border shelling between India and Pakistan on Friday, in one of this year's deadliest days along the heavily militarized frontier separating the nuclear-armed rivals, officials said. Indian officials said the barrage of mortars and other weapons along several parts of the line of control, the de facto border, began after Indian troops foiled an infiltration attempt from Pakistan in northern Kashmir. Pakistan's military said in a statement it had responded to unprovoked and indiscriminate firing by the Indian army. Now, Indian officials said that 6 civilians, 3 soldiers, and a border guard were killed on their side, while the Pakistani military said 4 civilians and 1 soldier were killed on the Pakistani side. More than 40 civilians have so far been killed in firing between Indian and Pakistani troops this year, according to the official data, with both sides suffering similar fatalities. Now, personally, I don't expect this conflict to flare up to something big. India and Pakistan usually have incidents like these from time to time as a way to distract the public from domestic problems. However, it is important to keep an eye on these kinds of situations as they can get out of control. One must also keep in mind that these kind of conflicts could be, in a certain sense, be provoked in a way to sort of because of the conflict between the West and Beijing, where Pakistan is closely aligned with Beijing and India is closely aligned with the West. Moving on, the Moroccan army, it seems, has launched a military operation in a buffer zone of Western Sahara, leading the Polisario Front independence movement to declare a 3-decade-long ceasefire over. The army said in a statement it had launched an operation in Guerguerat, located on the southern coast of the disputed region along the road leading to Mauritania, some 380 kilometers north of the capital, Nouakchott. The statement denounced what it described as, quote, the provocations of the Polisario, end quote, who have spent decades fighting and campaigning for autonomy. Rabat said its troops would, quote, put a stop to the blockade, end quote, of trucks traveling between Moroccan-controlled areas of the disputed territory and neighboring Mauritania and, quote, restore free circulation of civilian and commercial traffic, end quote. The Gorgorat buffer zone is patrolled by a United Nations peacekeeping force. Now, in response, the Polisario said that Morocco had violated the terms of a September 1991 ceasefire agreement. Last week, around 200 Moroccan truck drivers appealed to Moroccan and Mauritanian authorities for help, saying they were stranded on the Mauritania side of the border near Gorgorat. In a statement carried by the Mauritanian news agency Al Vian, the produce truck drivers said they were returning from Mauritania and sub-Saharan Africa, but, quote, militias affiliated with separatists, end quote, had stopped them from crossing. Now, in recent weeks, Moroccan media outlets said Sahrawi separatists had set up roadblocks and stopped passage across the border, but the Associated Foreign Press, but AFP has not been able to independently verify the reports. Western Sahara is a vast swath of desert on Africa's Atlantic coast and is a disputed former Spanish colony. Rabat controls around 80% of the territory, including its phosphate deposits and its fishing waters. Morocco, which maintains that Western Sahara is an integral part of the kingdom, has offered autonomy, but it insists it will retain sovereignty. The Algerian-backed Polisario Front, which fought a war for independence from 1975 to 1991, demands a referendum on self-determination. Now, the two sides signed a ceasefire in September 1991 under the aegis of the UN after 16 years of war, but the planned referendum has been repeatedly postponed due to a dispute between Rabat and the Polisario over the composition of the electorate and the status of the territory. Negotiations on Western Sahara involving Morocco, the Polisario, Algeria, and Mauritania have been suspended for several months. Now, considering the fact that this was bound to happen, as the Moroccan government has tried to drag its feet on trying to fulfill their part of the deal. Now, this is another conflict that I will be keeping an eye on to see how it develops. Moving over to Ethiopia, the European Union diplomacy has been quote unquote extremely vocal about the events in Ethiopia, the Tigray region, a spokesperson said while reacting upon the Amnesty International reports on hostilities there. The EU diplomacy have been following the situation closely, and both the High Representative Josep Borrell and Janez Lenerke, the Commissioner on Crisis Management, have expressed deep concern about the situation there. She added, quote, ethnically targeted measures, hate speech, and allegations of atrocities occurring in Ethiopia are deeply worrying. The demonization of ethnic groups is a vicious and lethal cycle from which Ethiopia must be spared. End quote. This was the statement of Borrell and Lenerkrik reads. Quote, Amnesty International today confirms that scores and likely hundreds of people were stabbed or hacked to death in Mai Kadra town in the southwest zone of Ethiopia's Tigray region on the night of 9 November, end quote, according to the statement of the organization published on their website. Rightly or wrongly, after battle, we will uncover a lot of unsavory things that have transpired in the guise of conducting the battle. Now, I suspect we will find out more horrific things. However, I don't think the war is over yet. Moving on, France said Friday that its forces had killed a senior Al-Qaeda commander during an operation in northeastern Mali. Armed Forces Minister Florence Parly said that a French military strike claimed the life of Ba'ag Moussa, a leader of the militant group's North Africa wing. Ba'ag Moussa, who was one of the U.S. who is on the U.S. terrorism list, was killed on Tuesday after an operation involving ground troops and helicopters. His death comes after a series of operations that have seen French forces kill dozens of Islamist fighters in recent weeks. Security experts in Mali are skeptical regarding the impact of Moussa's death. Osman Corneau, a Mali security expert who advises the Frederick Ebert Foundation in Germany, does not believe that his killing will curb terror activities in the country. Former colonial power France has more than 5,100 personnel spread across the region, with a large portion in Mali operating against rising militancy. Now, it first launched a military operation to drive back the Islamists in 2013, but fighting has spread to central Mali and to neighboring Burkina Faso and Niger, leaving thousands dead and hundreds of thousands forced to flee their homes. Vast swaths of Mali lie outside of the effective government control. Frustration over the seemingly endless conflict contributed to mass protests that led to the military ousting President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta on August 18. Mali's new interim government, which was appointed to rule for 18 months before staging elections, appears willing to engage in dialogue. Last month, it secured the release of 4 hostages held by Islamist groups, including 75-year-old Sophie Petronin, the last remaining French hostage in the world, in exchange for about 200 prisoners, some of whom are thought to have been jihadists. While I think fighting the terrorists involves us to fight them physically in war, however, I think the real battle should be fought on the realm of ideas and institutions that will address the concerns of the people who get attracted to the path of terrorism. Of course, one of the reasons why people are attracted to terrorism is the fact that the government is not seen as legitimate or as as an institution that can address the concerns of the people. And of course, there are other factors that play into it that create a terrorist. Moving on to Myanmar, the party of Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi has officially secured enough parliamentary seats in Myanmar's election to form a government for a second 5-year term, results published on Friday have shown. The National League for Democracy won at least 346 seats out of the 476 seats available across the country's upper and lower houses, above the 322 it needs for an absolute majority, the Election Commission said. The party had declared victory on Monday based on its own tally of the results, which predicted it would top its landslide 2015 win, which raised hopes for a new democratic era after decades of military rule. The opposition Union Solidarity and Development Party, a military proxy, won at least 25 seats according to the latest Election Commission tally. The NLD's tally shows the USDP winning 31 seats. Myanmar's military still wields ultimate power despite the result. A quarter of parliamentary seats are reserved for unelected soldiers, meaning they can block constitutional change, while the generals control key ministries. Hopefully, the new government will do its job and hopefully a great job of serving the people. But I would not bet a lot of my money on that, as I believe the military's rule in Myanmar and the way it is put itself in there in the institution is in such a way as a a true change that conforms to the people's will always be thwarted by the way the military has set up the institutions. Hopefully they get out. Hopefully there are more reforms that would allow the civilians to actually rule over the military. Well, that's it for this video. If you like the video, then hit that like button and hit that subscribe button for future updates. Write in the comments your thoughts, your criticism, or anything I might have missed. And I will see you in the next video.